I want to talk about Star Wars, and today I was thinking about a question that I see pop up quite a bit. Many people, including myself, feel that the prequels and the prequel characters were significantly enhanced or improved by the addition of the Clone Wars series. And the question is, could the sequels be similarly improved, enhanced, or fixed if they got a show like that as well? Before we dive into that, we need to do a bit of groundwork to lay the foundation of this argument. There are many people out there who like the sequels and don't think that they need to be fixed. And if you were one of those people, great, this show could enhance your enjoyment of the sequels even more. And if you're among those fans who weren't happy, maybe a show like this could address some of your concerns. Either way, the overall experience for everybody could be improved. Not to mention, we get more Star Wars content. Back to the question of the day. Can the sequels be fixed by a Clone Wars type series? My immediate reaction to this question was a hard no. The problems with the sequels are so fundamental that there is no way they could be improved by additional content, is what I thought. However, there is a thing that I try to make myself do when I feel an immediate reaction like that, which is to try and take a step back from myself and think, is that really true? Or do I just feel that it is true? So let's have a think, ask some questions, and try to figure out the answer. And the two big questions to ask are, where would our sequel series go, and what could it do? Do we put it before, during, or after the events of the sequel trilogy? Let's start with before. A series set before the trilogy could solve what I think is one of the trilogy's biggest problems. And that problem is, what happened to the galaxy in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens? When we left the galaxy and our original characters at the end of Return of the Jedi, the rebels had decapitated the Empire, which looked like it was crumbling, George had shipped Han and Leia, and Luke had redeemed his father without falling to the dark side, and was poised to bring back the Jedi. Cut to The Force Awakens and everything has changed. That's not unexpected, 30 years have gone by, but it's unclear how we got from where we were to where we are, and that's not the way to continue a story. See, when A New Hope began, we didn't know anything about the galaxy, and the title crawl is there to tell us there's an empire, there's a rebellion, Princess Leia has something stolen from the Empire, and the Empire's agents are chasing her. Now we know what the board looks like, and we know some of the pieces on it. We know everything we need to for the story to begin. When The Force Awakens begin, nothing is where we left it. Luke's gone and there's no new Jedi Order. Han and Leia have split. They had a son who's now a bad guy. There's a republic that Leia's not a part of. She's still leading the rebels, or something. And somehow everyone let the Empire come back in the form of the First Order. If this were a brand new story, and therefore a brand new board, this might work. However, it's not a brand new story. It's entirely dependent on you having seen the previous movies. Now, I don't know what the board looks like anymore, and I don't understand how the pieces got from where they were to where they are. This is why I might agree with someone who says the trilogy started off on the wrong foot from the beginning of The Force Awakens. We're beginning this story with loads of questions, which could work, but some of the questions aren't answered sufficiently or at all in this movie or the movies that come after. So a series that took place before the trilogy begins could answer a lot of these questions. We could learn a lot about the First Order and the New Republic, Leia's involvement with the New Republic and the Resistance, what happened between Han and Leia and why Han regressed back to being a smuggler. We could develop Snoke and Kylo. They could give Kylo a much more compelling backstory and a better explanation of what he wants from the dark side and why he wants it. You could even tease Palpatine a bit, introducing the idea that there's someone or something out there manipulating events. That would be a very Palpatine thing to do, and it would be much less of a narrative shock when Snoke dies and Palpatine is reintroduced in the third movie. All of this could be done and set prior to the events of The Force Awakens and could start us off on the right foot in the trilogy. If all or even some of that were done, I think the sequels would be significantly enhanced. But I think the biggest thing that could be done in a series set in a time before the sequels would be the development of Luke Skywalker. Give me a moment and let me try to rephrase a common complaint about Luke in The Last Jedi. When Return of the Jedi ended, Luke was not who he was when we met him on Tatooine. He had changed and developed, but we were there for the significant events that led to these developments. So we understand how and why he ended up this way. When people complain that Luke is not behaving the way he should, it's not that he's different, it's that we didn't see how he got to be this way. He is a radically different character from who he was when we left him, and that could still be disappointing for some, but we would all understand if the development was done and we got to see it. And in a series, before we see him again in The Last Jedi, we would have the opportunity to do that. And that is why a Clone Wars type series for the sequels should be done before the events in the trilogy begin. Well, that might be true, but would it work better in the middle? Could we even fit it in the middle? The timeline of the sequels is so small that there really isn't a lot of room to fit a series in here. There's little to no time for additional events to happen in The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, or the time between them, unless the characters of this series are not our sequel heroes. And I don't think that would be the way to go, because that would do little to enhance our existing characters, some of whom could benefit from additional development. So if it were to go in the middle of the trilogy, it would have to fit in the year between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. This means that this series will not be able to do anything to address the issues we went over previously, unless we use a significant amount of flashbacks. This could work, but it wouldn't be as effective as us experiencing these events along with our characters. So our main focus would be on the sequel characters and not characters like Luke or Han. What could we do in this year that would fix, improve, or otherwise enhance the characters and the story of the sequel trilogy? I think Kylo and the First Order could benefit a lot from some additional screen time. It's never really made clear how powerful the First Order is or how much control they have over the galaxy after the events of The Last Jedi, or what they do with that power and control. We could also see what Kylo gets up to when he's not waffling between the light and the dark. Why is he with the bad guys? What does he really want? These are just some of the questions we could delve into more deeply if we had the time, and could make him an even more interesting character. But what about the good guys? Before I continue, I want you to think about something. 1 hour and 18 minutes, or about 2/3 of the way into A New Hope, our original heroic trio has assembled and is experiencing their first adventure together. Meanwhile, in the sequels, our new heroic trio doesn't even meet until the end of The Last Jedi. They don't have their first adventure together until they hunt the Wayfinders in The Rise of Skywalker. This is one of the reasons why it's difficult to understand their group dynamic. They don't have one. We've never seen them as a group. How do they work together? Do they like each other? Do they trust each other? Why do they trust each other? Who does what in the group? What different skills do they bring to the table so they can solve problems together? Is there some romantic tension happening here? Or maybe here? If we got to see them work together and overcome challenges as a group, that might actually fix one of my most hated lines of the trilogy.
Not fighting what we hate.
No, not that one. This one.
Taking one last look, sir, at my friends.
English does not yet have the words to describe how much this line did not work for me. 3PO means nothing to these people. When he says, "Well, I could translate the dagger, but you'd have to kill me," they look at him and go, "Yes, let's do that." And when he says he's looking at his friends, I'm thinking, are you talking to me or are you talking to them? Because I've known you for 30 years, and they've known you for 30 minutes. He means nothing to them, so the line just totally falls flat. A year isn't a ton of time, but you could fit 2 or maybe even 3 seasons of stuff in there. We can't change these characters significantly because they still have to be who they were in the 3rd movie. We might not be able to see that much individual character growth, but we could see quite a bit of them growing together as a team. If this was done well, it would add a lot more weight to the first half of Rise of Skywalker, or any scene where these characters are interacting. And if 3PO was along for the ride, when he says,
Taking one last look, sir, at my friends.
We'd know that he was talking to them and not to us. And that is why this series should go in the middle. Or should it? You may or may not have seen my previous video speculating about the future of the galaxy and why a Cold War may be what lies ahead. But that was only part of what I talked about. I'll do my best to summarize my points so I'm not just repeating myself here. At the end of Rise of Skywalker, we don't know the state of the First Order, but even with Kylo and Palpatine gone, they are most likely still the dominant power of the galaxy. The Resistance does not have the political organization that the Rebellion had, so they will probably struggle to fill the power vacuum, if one even exists. Lando's fleet is only a temporary thing. Now that the threat of Palpatine's fleet has been dealt with, why should this fleet stick together? To make a long story short,
Too late!
I don't foresee a quick or easy war against the First Order. I don't see the Resistance as a strong enough political force to reform the Republic. It's debatable whether they can even beat the First Order. If there's no central authority ruling the galaxy, we've got thousands of systems doing their own thing. We could see a breakdown in communications and trade, famine, starvation, smaller conflicts between the systems, lawlessness and bandits roaming unchecked throughout the galaxy. It's a mess. And you know what else that is? Really interesting. So a series set after the sequels could clean all this up and lay the groundwork for whatever comes next. And that is why this series should be set after the trilogy. So let's go back to our original question. Could a Clone Wars type series improve, enhance, or fix the sequel trilogy? If we put this show in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, we could fix the foundation of the sequel trilogy, start us off on the right foot, and do a better job explaining how Luke got to be who he is now. If we put it during the trilogy, we can't change the characters too much. However, we can really develop their relationships and give some much-needed purpose to the characters who didn't have enough to do in the movies. If we put it at the end, we can clean up the galaxy after the rise of Skywalker and put the franchise on the right path for the future. Having gone through all this, I think my first reaction was wrong. I think the sequels could be improved quite a bit if they got a Clone Wars type series. That being said, I don't think one of these series will get the job done. I think it needs all three. And that might be a bit too much to ask. And then we run into the problem of which of these series do we pick? I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure. I want a better understanding of our original trilogy characters. I want better development for the new characters because I kind of like them. And I'd also like some clarity on what's going to happen next because right now the future looks pretty dark. So that's a tough choice, but I think if I had to pick one, I think I would pick Before. That is where I feel a Clone Wars type series could do the most good. Anyways, that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'll be very interested to see. If you liked today's video, I'd appreciate it if you could give me a thumbs up, and if you hated it, the thumbs down button is available to you. Your feedback is important to me. And if you'd like to hear me ramble some more about Star Wars, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I have an ever-expanding list of things I want to talk about. But that's all I got for you today, so I thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you next time, and may the Force be with you, always.
Every word of what you just said was wrong.